Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Analog Mancave. Today, we're talking about hirelings, henchmen, mercenaries, and followers. And I'm going to do a different thing this video. I'm going to break it in two parts. Okay, so the first part, I'm going to talk in general, in the abstract, because what I also have here is of course, I have house rules for this. I have like 6 or 7 pages of mercenary, hireling, henchman, and follower house rules. So we're going to first talk in the abstract and talk about what I do and how I do it in general with these guys, and then I'm going to get into what I will go through, show you my webpage where I posted these, and you can see what they're all about. Okay, so it should be interesting, I think. First thing, what you're looking at here is first thing is, pardon me for any sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever, so I could rest medicine. I got a cold. All right, so I'm trying to get over this. I took some pills, and we'll see how we do. But if I cough or sneeze or something, I'll try to edit that out. But please put up with that. All right. Anyway, what you're looking at here is our scenes from the Borgias, which I figured it was an old Showtime series. I don't know, about 8, 10 years ago. It was on. It was excellent, by the way, about Cesare Borgia, the Pope Borgia, his son Cesare, and what they did. It's so good, so good. But I figured this really captures hirelings, henchmen, mercenaries, and followers. These 4 pictures, right? So Cesare Borgia, the son of the Pope, he was also mentioned in Machiavelli's. Books about how he's like devious and ruthless and this and that. Um, he was he was an example of that kind of a ruthless guy, and I figured, sounds like an adventurer. So let's see what he did. Now, Micheletto was his assassin, right? He first came across Micheletto in the series, at least when Micheletto was hired to assassinate his family, and he stopped him and hired him, and turned him against his own employer. So at that point, I figured Micheletto became a hireling. All right. This is a picture. It's early on in their time. Probably actually later. He was not shaven, but the first picture in the top left corner sort of gives an image of a guy being hired at an approach. Can you do something for me? And then these hirelings, they go out and they adventure for a while with the PC. Now each PC hires a hireling. They are not hired by the group, okay? Because there are loyalty morale checks, and that goes to a particular PC. So that's one thing to keep in mind here. So that's a one-on-one relationship that you have. Okay, the next is the hireling progresses. I think there should be always a progression, a way for hirelings to get better, and they become maybe mercenaries. That's what you see in the bottom left corner. All right, that's where there are mercenaries. This is Micheletto and his band of badasses. I think they call them the stray dogs, a bunch of other stray dogs, and they're tough people. They are not class, but they are tough, and they can hold their own in fights. All right, they're skilled and they're hardened combatants. And then Micheletto himself eventually becomes the right hand man of Cesare Borgia, and that is a henchman. All right, you've done so many good services. You've gone from hireling to mercenary. You've qualified in a sense as a henchman, and a henchman can be a class character. That's a rule I take on from the old editions. Definitely, I like the progression of hireling hireling to mercenary to henchman. I think that's a nice progression because it shows that you've, through thick and thin, lived, fought by your side of your employer, and then you progress into a classed person. Now, followers are a little bit different because what followers are our the thing that you get at like 8th or 9th or 10th level, whatever game you're playing. Now, I did a video on this, something related to this, where some guys were talking about, there were 5e guys talking about the OSR and how you get as like a freebie upon like an achievement. You just get followers and a keep all of a sudden. It doesn't work like that. All right, everything is within the setting. Everything happens within the setting. So they don't just magically appear. You have to earn them in some role playing way, or so. It's something within the game itself. You have to earn these followers. But followers, the bottom right corner, troops dedicated to the PC. Okay, so that's when they do hit higher levels instead of a castle and this and that. Now, followers can certainly come from hirelings who became mercenaries. I mean, mercenaries are essentially what you're looking at here, pikemen, bowmen, crossbowmen, things like that. That's what a mercenary is in my game, okay? Now, going through this, one thing to keep in mind is when you look at my house rules on my webpage here, which we'll have a link below for it, I took a lot of stuff from the game Hyperborea. It's a game by Jeff Talanian. It used to be called Astonishing Swordsman and Sorcerers Hyperborea. And I took a lot of stuff from the second edition of this game because I was doing something for Blood Island. It was just a setting campaign thing I was running for a while with Hyperborea. But I converted it over recently for second edition, so I'm looking forward to getting out there and playing it. Now, what we're going to have, I figure I'll start with definitions, but what we have in this thing, I'm going to go over sort of an overview of the definitions of each group, what they're good for, what you do with them, and then how I use them. But keep in mind, I took Text Hyperborea, then I changed a lot of it. I added a lot to it. But Hyperborea is a great game. You should pick it up. Third edition just came out. I did a review actually of it, so it's kind of cool. You can check out that review and see what it's all about. Okay. Now, start with the definitions. All right. The way I look at hirelings, they are what you would call the torchbearer, the guy who carries the loot, or maybe an armor shield bearer in combat. Okay. A hireling is typically somebody that people consider a red shirt in that regard. I mean, they're like the old Star Trek original series where somebody with a red shirt beams down with Kirk and McCoy and Spock, and they're going to die. They're a red shirt, right? They're like stormtroopers. They go down. By the way, here's a joke for you. Speaking of which, in a fight between red shirts and stormtroopers, who would win? It's the ultimate paradox, really, because red shirts must die, but stormtroopers can't hit anything ever in combat. So you have a huge conundrum right there. Anyway, away from that. I can see the cold medicine is kicking in now. We get on to tangents here, but hirelings are basically typically looked at as red shirts. They're not. All right. Because in my game, reality means a lot. Immersion means a lot. You don't just walk into an inn and say, I'm looking for hirelings. And okay, the DM says, you get 3 hirelings. No, what you're getting when you walk into an inn is a guy named John Smith. He is the farmer's third oldest son. He's not going to inherit a farm. He has no desire to be a farmer for the rest of his life, and he wants to go out and maybe be an adventurer. He's been hanging around the bar. He's heard stories and tales of adventurers and how some people got sort of hired on to go in there and, hey, carry the treasure out or hold this torch or something along those lines, or help with the camp along the way. And they, progressed. They learned from these seasoned adventurers the life of how to be an adventurer, and they eventually survived long enough, showed their loyalty, showed their tests of morale, and they gained some skills in fighting, and they grew in power and then became adventurers themselves. And this is what John Smith, the third farmer's son, wants to do. So if you're going into a small town and you're looking for people to hire, you're going to find somebody like John Smith. Now, if you go out on an adventure and John Smith doesn't come out, but you're wearing John Smith's belt and have a new shiny dagger with the initials JS on it on your belt, you're going to know that, you left this dude to die out there. You took his stuff and then nothing. That's it. Nobody's going to hire on with you again. Okay. Red shirts, it's not how you look at them. You look at them as people first. They are non-expendable red shirts. They're not door openers. Oh, that looks like it might be a trap door. Hey, John Smith, why don't you go open that door? It doesn't work like that. You kill John Smith, you're not going to get too many other Jane Smiths, Joan Smiths, or Jim Smiths. Okay. Because they say, geez, this dude is cursed. Okay. Now, another thing to keep in mind is I have a couple of different titles because I have 3 levels of hireling, essentially. Okay. The first level, I call it torchbearer. The reason I call it a torchbearer because it sort of like goes, well, you're holding a torch for the group, but it goes back to like, remember that show with Christmas Story where Ralphie's out there holding a flashlight for his father? We all did that, right? At some point, that was the lowest level kid job you can do when you're trying to help your father is hold the flashlight or hand me the wrench and a better, or a screwdriver, something like that. That's the lowest level thing. So I call it a torchbearer. It's essentially low responsibility type of job. You're going with the group. You're holding the torch. You're not doing too much, but you're there, okay, and you're seeing how things go, and you'll have opportunities for your loyalty and morale to be tested with your relationship with that PC within the group who hired you, okay, and so from there you move on up to. I call it the treasure chest, the treasure holder, something like that. The guy who says, "All right, cool, we got this this chest of 100 gold pieces. Why don't you carry it out of here? Put it in your sack and carry it." So they've grown from somebody to just hold the flashlight to somebody who you could trust to do things. Okay. Now they've become somebody like this guy isn't going to run away. He seems to be loyal. I'll let him hold the bag of loot while I explore further. But he's behind me, and I'll make sure he lives because he seems to be pretty good. Maybe I could train him later. He could help me in fights. Who knows? So this is the mentality you're looking at here. So I call it the sort of the treasure bearer. The guy who carries all the loot. Now the third level of hireling, what I call them armor bearers or weapon bearers because they're the ones who have seen enough fights, seen enough combat that you can trust them not to run during it, right? So if you use the shield, the rule for shields shall be shattered, which I have in my house rules, where you expend the shield, it breaks and shatters, and essentially it's destroyed, lowering your armor class but preventing you from a fatal blow or taking massive damage by a big blow from somebody. Then you have a guy there holding a backup shield, or you could swap out weapons, or he could light the flaming oil for you that you throw at the thing, right? And so that's the guy who's next to you, standing side by side in combat. He's the tested hireling. Okay. So the three levels of hirelings all come down to how many times have they been tested? How much has their loyalty morale been tested? And that's how they advance. For every adventure they survive, I have, as long as they didn't fail loyalty morale check, they go a little bit higher level in terms of advancement. That's how they level up. It's not XP. They don't get XP of the group. They don't get treasure or anything like that. Okay. And then what happens is that they would then advance to what I call mercenaries. And mercenaries are just people who have armor weapons, maybe, and they will actually fight. So they usually would be hirelings that you've progressed through hireling levels that you trust, or they could just be mercenaries you hired. They could be wagon guards in town for a while, for a couple of weeks, and they got they're between gigs or whatever, and you say, hey, you're good with a sword, right? You guard that wagon, orcs attack. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You want to go on a little thing with me here? We have some opportunity for treasure. Now they're going to get a share. Mercenaries, because they're doing fighting, they're going to get a half share of XP and some share of the treasure, depending on how much you negotiate. Are also going to cost more per day than any of the other guys. Okay. And I have 3 levels of mercenary too. So as you get better as a mercenary, you're still not a classed character, but as you get better as a mercenary, your to hit penalties go down, and they go down to something, because in some cases none, because everybody has some to hit penalties. They're not proficient, but they gain some proficiencies as they go up in both armor and weapons, and so they become more able to be valuable to you in a fight. All right. Now, these are just jobs that I call them, 3 levels of journeyman, master, apprentice, whatever, mercenaries, and the torchbearer, the treasure bearer, the armor bearer. You don't have to call it that, but call it whatever you want. You don't have to have titles at all. You could just have, John Smith, who's now been around a couple of sessions and he's trusted to carry things, or whatever you want to do. And just because they carry things, just because he's the torchbearer, doesn't mean he can't do other things. If you trust the dude, if you think his loyalty, his morale is high enough, he can stand by you in combat, pass you something that's lighted lamp or something like that, oil, whatever the case may be. But the thing is, he's not going to be good in a fight yet, because he's not been tested enough and he's not been trained enough. So no matter what you do with him, you could treat him like a weapon armor bearer from the day one, but he won't be able to progress to mercenary until he's spent some time. And because it's assumed in his downtime, he says, hey man, you big tough fighter, can you show me how to swing that thing? Yeah, let me show you. So you do a little sparring, around the campfire at night, and then you go to bed. You got a little training along the way. So that's why they're going to start with some abilities in fighting when they become mercenaries. All right. And again, they get a share of the treasure as mercenaries. So that is a good thing. Eventually, as you go beyond mercenary, what you're going to become is a classed individual. And I have rules for how to progress to being a classed individual. Now, it's easy to go from a mercenary to a fighter. It's less training time involved. To go from a mercenary to a ranger, it takes more training time, because there's more in-depth knowledge and tutelage that has to happen. It's like a year and a half at the feet of a ranger PC. If you're going to go from a mercenary to a thief, then what you need is time in a city. You need like 6 months in a city under a tutelage of a thief, trying to earn your living as a thief. So it's a lot of stuff happens. It's just like, boom, I'm a thief now. No, you're not. You have to spend time doing something as a mercenary. Okay. And then you become a classed person. And once you become a classed person, let's say the PCs are, 4th level or something like that, and you've just had a torchbearer move all the way up to a 1st level fighter. And let's say he was working with a fighter who's now 4th or 5th level. That fighter has trained him. He's invested a lot of time in that new fighter, that new 1st level guy, right? So John Smith has spent probably a couple of years with Bluto the fighter. John Smith is trusted by Bluto. John Smith can then bump up to a henchman. All right. So a henchman is a classed individual that works for another classed individual. They're usually of the same class, and they're usually of several levels at least lower. And they're the right-hand man of the person. Okay. Just like Micheletto, the assassin, was the right-hand man of Cesare. So They are the right hand man. They go out. They can be trusted to do things. Their loyalty has been tested long enough that they're not going to steal from you. You could even, as a DM, have these PCs go out on missions for you. Greg Christopher in his Ambition and Avarice game has rules for. He has a follower system in there, and he has rules for this where they go out and can come, send them on a mission to scout or something like that, and they come back for you, like a ranger or something along those lines. So it's kind of cool to have sort of agency. What you're doing, a lot of people hate hirelings and henchmen and mercenaries and followers. They hate them because it's like, it's more crap to keep track of. I got to do blah, blah, blah. They don't get what you're doing is you're expanding your base of power. You're expanding the reach. It's like a carrier air group versus a destroyer. Right, a carrier air group has a lot more toys in its arsenal, and it can project its power a lot further around. That's the same thing you're getting with hirelings, henchmen, mercenaries, and followers. You're able to project your will further around with the more people you have. The more charisma, the higher your charisma, the more henchmen you could have, and the better loyalty morale checks are. So charisma, when you're looking at this, is not a dump stat. I know everybody uses it a dump stat in newer editions of the game, but hirelings, henchmen, mercs, followers, they are a critical piece of the old school games. Okay, a lot of people don't use them; they don't like them. I do. I think they're fantastic. They have such a depth to the game that you'll never, once you really do it well, you'll never go back again. All right, you'll never go back to just the old way of doing things. Now, basically, what I'm going to do, the other thing too. As an NPC, right? They're moving through the ranks as the DM sort of control, and you say what they're going to do. DM makes a loyalty check, a morale check, and then they, do whatever they're going to do there. But you could use them as a backup PC, right? If you think about it, if you get all the way up there and you're 5th level Bluto, and you have a second or third level guy in John Smith, and Bluto dies, guess what? Now you have a character ready to go. You know this character intimately. You progress through him. The character already has a relationship with all the other PCs in the group. Becomes a full-time member of the group. Now a lot of the new gamers or new school gamers are like, oh, but yeah, he's 3rd level. The other ones are 5th level. Oh. It's not like that in old school. Nobody gives a shit. There's no such thing as balance per se as you're used to having. So just put that right out of your mind. And plus, trust me, if you're 5th, 6th level, this guy who's 3rd level is going to be 4th or 5th level, and probably get really close to matching you really soon, because the time to go up between levels is extraordinary. Okay, so you're not going to have that big of a deal. And again, nobody cares about balance like you do in newer editions. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now, a bit about loyalty morale. Some people are saying, well, what's the difference? Again, I'm taking this from Hyperborea. Let me give a shout out, because I promised somebody I would, because this rule, my hirelings, henchmen, mercs, and followers rules have been several iterations and generations in different games, different systems. I stole stuff from so many places I forgot where. All right. So that's why I'm definitely claiming Hyperborea. I know I copied and pasted it and did some editing on my rules. But the other thing here that I also took from a couple different places. There's a West Marches campaign, all right, online that you could check out. Now, West Marches is a campaign where it's in the old Guy Gaxian style. You have multiple PCs. You go out in groups. You adventure. You hire hirelings and halflings and this and that, and then you come back. Okay. Jason Hobbs is running a game. All right, he has a show on YouTube, and he's running a game for West Marches, and he has hireling and mercenary advancement rules. And I know I took stuff from him. I don't remember what. So, Jason Hobbs, you're out there. This is, I told you I would thank you for it, and there it is. Okay, so anyway, what is loyalty and morale? Loyalty is a test to by the hireling or the mercenary to the PC, where will they keep up the best interests of that PC? Will they steal from the PC? Will they take risks for the PC that are not related to combat? Will they squeal on the PC? Will they talk shit about the PC in like bars or things like that? Will they survive bribery tests by other people? Hey, give me information about this PC. I'll give you 100 gold. Will they survive that test? That's a loyalty thing. Morale is something completely different. Morale is whether you stand there in combat toe to toe, or in the group, or in the room, or in the hallway with the PC when shit goes bad. Okay, when the dragon shows up and roars and does the hireling crap his pants, or the mercenary crap his pants and run the hell away? Taking a torch or the only source of light with them, and maybe some of the treasure if they're carrying that. that is the test of morale. Now, the difference between loyalty and morale, you could be an extremely loyal person, but uh never ever ever want to go into combat. That's a different thing. You could, or the PC, you could have a loyalty store for hirelings that have nothing to do with NPCs that go into combat, like a butler, a major domo of a castle. They're never going to go into combat, but so they don't have to really worry about morale. But a loyalty score is important. Now, the way these loyalty morale scores work, I do a 12-point system. It's 5, 6 is average, 12 is the highest you could get, and each one is really low. Now, you don't know what the loyalty and morale scores are of the PCs you hire, right? The DM does, and he has it all written down, as well as the personality traits and quirks and whatnot. And so while you don't know, the DM does. And so every time there's a test of loyalty or morale, what'll happen is the DM will roll a 2d6 against that score, right? So if your score is 7 for your loyalty, and there's a test of loyalty, like a bribe, or somebody wants you to talk to him about where's the PC keep his treasure in his keep. So there is a test of loyalty, right? So let's say the loyalty score is 7. Okay, the higher the better in this. So if you take 2d6, roll under a 7, you're good. All right. If you roll over a 7, there he's going to fail the test. Okay, and depending on the table that I have, that'll determine how bad he fails the test. All right. So same thing with morale. You start out with a morale score, and the most badass people have the highest morale score. So you got a 9 for a really badass mercenary going there with you, an experienced, hardened mercenary. So they have a morale of 9. They're gung-ho. They're always ready to fight. They don't break unless the most stringent conditions. Some bad stuff has to happen for them to break. And so you roll 2d6. If it's under a 9, no, they don't break. If it's over a 9, no, they do. Some consequence happens depending how bad it's over a 9, right? If it's a 12, it might be worse. If it's a 10, then they might just sort of not take an action that round, right? If it's a 12, they might run. All right, or they might just go and just cower somewhere. You don't know, right? That's the thing. It's up to the DM to interpret the dice rolls. It's not some our absolute situation where you roll and you see what happens based on a table every single time. Absolutely comes out the same way. No, it's determined by the DM and the situation that you're in right there. Okay, so it's never an absolute thing. All right, so that's pretty much how I work. All of the henchmen. Oh, let me get into followers. That's the last thing. Followers are a special type of hireling, I guess you could say. They are mercenaries usually, right? And let's say you get to 9th or 10th level, and you build your keep, your fort, or whatever. You're a fighter, and you get whatever it is in your rules. So 20 archers, 30 light crossbowmen, and 15 pikemen. Whatever it is. The rules say something. I never do it like that. What you have to do in my games was, if you hit that level, first you got to be able to build this thing. You got to afford it. And then you have the diplomatic relations with all the neighbors around, and then you got to start recruiting people, right? And so you figure out what's available. DM has tables of charts or chances for various things, and the DM will roll or figure it out, or just give you stuff depending. And so I'll figure out, okay, in this area, I'm going to say he's near enough to a city to justify this type, maybe some cavalry. He's near, if it's a mountainous area, you're not going to get cavalry in a mountainous area. That's ridiculous. Okay. If you have a low tech place, you may not get a lot of longbowmen, but you might get some crossbowmen. Little things like that. It has to make sense within the system. So followers are just mercenaries who you hire on a full-time basis. Followers do not go with you on adventures in dungeons. Followers are your guards to your fort, to your keep, your tower, your church, whatever it may be, right? Followers are the people that guard your crap when you're gone. that's kind of what they are. Or they go to war if another neighboring fighter has a keep, 50 miles away, and says, I want your keep in your lands, buddy. I want your 20 silver pieces per inhabitant, or whatever AD&D first edition said. Then that fighter goes to war. Then you got a battle. Then you have, your 30 crossbowmen and 15 pikemen and 20 heavy infantry goes against his army, his army of followers, plus whatever you might be able to hire or recruit. So again, followers do not go in a dungeon. Followers stand back. Followers always basically guard your shit, and they're generally not going to have loyalty morale tests, things like that. They're just sort of NPCs in the background. Okay, the hirelings, the mercenaries, and the henchmen are the ones that are doing, for the most part, what's going on. Now, within the follower group, you may have some special ones. They might be close to being classed, or actually classed themselves, depending on your game and how you run it. So you might have ones who can maybe advance to being henchmen as well. So over time, you might be able to pick out, John Doe as a really well-trained master mercenary, and the DM would say, oh yeah, you could take John Doe on an adventure, even though he's a follower, because he's the special one, right? He maybe there's one or two special ones. And they go with you on adventures. They head out, they go and basically they can progress to being henchmen as well. And so that's why you have a limit to your maximum number of henchmen you could have. This is what you do. You just increase your mercenary group and then recruit from within. You get some more henchmen. It doesn't make sense. You just don't go to a bar and say, I'm looking for a henchman. That doesn't make any sense because you don't have no idea if you could trust this person. You're basing it on what? Is he having a resume? You're going to do references? You're going to pick up the medieval phone and call for references? It makes no sense. A henchman is somebody that you don't hire. A henchman is somebody you groom, okay? From hireling and mercenary. All right, so that is the first half of this video. Next time, what I'm going to do, or half, I don't know how long the other part's going to take, but what I'm going to do now is get into, this is my my webpage, okay, Analog Man Cave. You could read this, or just listen to what I'm saying here, because we're both. And what I'm going to do is go through my rules, what I do with them, and the structure, everything that I just talked about is all done. So I'm just going to show you how I implemented what I talk about within the rules and talk about what and why I did it. So you're going to get more if you listen to me than if you just read the rules, okay? Because I'm not just going to read these. I'm going to explain what and why was the thought behind them, all right? So anyway, going forward, a lot of stuff I talked about here is hirelings, mercenaries, and what they're all about, non-red shirts and whatnot. But something I make the PCs do is you don't just walk into a bar and say, any henchmen around, any hirelings around, any mercer. You have to do something. You have to interact with them in character. And that requires a reaction roll. Like another old school thing. Look up reaction rolls, guys. Most every old school game has it worth their salt. Reaction rolls are, basically what is the NPC's reaction to you initially, and how does your interaction with that NPC move that reaction score once you make the big ask to see what they'll do for you, okay? And you have to do this in character. And the better speech you do in character, the better the roll modifier is by me, okay? And then I talk about the advancement of these people. Now, advancement of hirelings and mercenaries, essentially what you're looking at here is a torchbearer advances to a porter. That's what I call them, a porter, the guy who carries crap. After 2 successful, dangerous adventures wherein they did not fail any loyalty morale checks. They go from porter to weapon armor bearer, takes 2 more sessions with no fails. And then after 3 more dangerous adventures with no failed checks, armor weapon bearers advance to apprentice mercenaries. Again, it's assumed that you're training these people along the way. You're giving them, here's how to swing a sword. Man, here's how to hold the shield so you don't get your head bashed in. Here's how to wear that armor, okay? So that's the gist of it. Now, eventually, as a mercenary, you do get a half share of the XP gained in an adventure. By half share, I mean if there's 3 PCs and each PC has a mercenary, that means there are 9 shares. PCs get 2 shares, mercenaries each get 1 share. Okay. Now they're generally working to becoming fighters, thieves, and rangers. Once a novice mercenary gains 1,000 XP, becomes a journeyman. After 1,500 more, becomes a master. Master mercenary. And then 2,000 more XP and further training with a member of the group. See below. Then it becomes a class individual. And the training, it's not just, within, you have to go somewhere. Like I've said, you have to have time spent somewhere. Now, you cannot become a mage or a priest in this, all right? So the only thing you can become is a ranger, thief, or fighter. Because a mage or a priest, any priest class, takes years of training, 5 to 8 years to become a first level adventurer, okay? During that time, they're not going anywhere on adventures at all. You might be able to have, in a long campaign, you might get somebody who was a former, hireling or mercenary of yours who later became a priest in a temple, and 8 years later, you meet him as a first level priest. You spend 8 years in training, then you become a first level priest. Again, this is reality, okay? This is not like, oh, I'm going to take a level in this and then a level in that, and I'll dip a level in this, and it all happened overnight because I did a long rest. That's not how it works in old school games, okay? So in a long campaign, you might see that person again when they'll have a good relationship with them. Okay, now one thing I do is that, because as a little bonus, any person who progresses to Master Mercenary, all right, and gains that 10 HP, because that's where you get 10 hit points as a Master Mercenary. And then if you progress to be a classed character, you will start with 10 hit points regardless of the class you choose to train in. That's a little bonus. Like, you work through the ranks. I don't care that a cleric only has, or a priest only has 8 hit points max at D8. You're starting with 10 because you really earned that crap. You didn't learn your trade as a priest, a first level priest in basically in a school and having your ass behind a chair listening to lectures all day. You'll actually earn that stuff in combat. You've learned it. And so hit points is a toughness and luck and everything else. So yeah, you get that. Okay. Now everybody has different abilities in combat. Okay, and they have different hit points. Henchmen, as class people have the class abilities, but getting down here, I have a little table for you, a little chart. So a torchbearer, I call him a torchbearer. They're 1 to 6 hit points plus a con mod. Same thing with hirelings and the porters and the armor weapon guys. But what you're noticing here is they have some really basic proficiencies. All right. I'm giving them a -1 penalty for throwing oil because at the very least, the dude can light a flaming flask and throw it at somebody. Right. And they're proficient with a -3 penalty at either a club, dagger, javelin, or sling, and -6 to everything else. And they get 1 attack per round. They can wear leather armor and kernel penalties. Okay. And then as you go up to porter, you get more of a choice of what maybe you'll learn a club, a dagger, something like that. You're getting more weapons shown to you other than the very most basic very weapons. Okay. And then as you go up again to armor, the weapon guy, the 3rd level, the more advanced guy. Okay. Then you get more weapons to choose from, and you get to choose more proficiencies and more weapons that you're maybe -3 at, and the other ones you're -6 at. Okay. And you can wear up the ringmail now. You've learned how to wear armor in combat and survive. You might have to do that because you're up there next to the fighter, trying to live. He's going to put you in better armor, right? Now, once you get to a mercenary apprentice, all right, that's when you get no penalty with the oil. You get 3 proficiencies in some of those weapons, and then everything else you are -4. But those the good ones you're at -1. Okay, and then you can wear up the ringmail, and you can use a shield with no penalties. Okay, and then a journeyman mercenary, you get more weapons, better proficiencies, and more hit points, and all the way on up to master. Okay, so this is my framework that I use. Now, the good thing about master mercenaries is that they can be trained then to fight from horseback. So a master mercenary trained to fight from horseback becomes a heavy cavalry or light cavalry, whatever you want to train them in. All right, but you need a classed PC who has a skill in that to actually train. All right, now you're asking, okay, what do they cost though, man? All right, so here you go. Torchbearer, 1 gold a day, a porter, 2 gold a day, and armor weapon bearer, 3 gold a day. And then they also perform camp duties. You want them to go out there, get the firewood, light the fire, get the food going, pitch the tents, boom. That's what they're good for. You can sit there and read your spell book or sharpen your sword or whatever you want to do. Take a crap behind the tree, right? And so I got once you become mercenaries or followers, I call it the same price. This is the typical cost for long bowman, short bowman, light crossbowman, heavy crossbowman, all the various ones here. Typical daily cost, as well as typical armor and shields that they're coming with. Okay, and if the mercenaries are journeyman, you add 2 more gold. If they're a master level, you add 5 more gold because they're better. All right. Now, I get into loyalty and morale here, and I kind of went over that, but what I'm going to show you here are the starting scores. You can roll or just pick whatever you want, okay? So if you get a 6 to 8, you're fair. You uphold generally their employer's directives. If you're 9 to 10, you're trustworthy. 11, you're loyal, and 12, you're unwavering. Go beyond the call of duty. All right, that's the loyalty, and I explained how that worked before. Now, you can keep in mind that as a hireling or henchman or follower mercenaries' loyalty and morale have been tested over and over again. It's up to the DM to say, you know what, this guy started with a 5, and he's proven every test so far a 5 in either any score. He's like, I'm going to bump him up to 6 because he's become more loyal because the PC has maybe given him gifts or showered him with or saved his life, stuck a valuable potion down his throat when he was injured in a combat and saved his life, or maybe he helped him out in some way, gave him good armor, gave him good gear. And so that loyalty goes up a little bit, maybe, if you do stuff like that, right? And over time, as a bond grows between 2 people, just naturally you become more loyal to that person, right? So there you go. The PC is more loyal to him. He's more loyal to the PC. Same thing with morale. The more you're tested, the more you prove yourself. Hey, I could do this shit, man. I could get in there. I could do more to hold the torch. I've been next to him when he was fighting that ghoul. I passed him the shield as soon as he needed it. I even threw an oil to the other guy and it burned him and it calf killed him. So this is good. I'm there. I could do this stuff. I could fight. I'm the morale goes up. Right? Something like that happens to an NPC, the morale naturally will go up there. So if you started with a 7, you might advance to 8 morale as the DM decides that, what you did was heroic enough. Okay. And so this is the cool thing about that. Now, then I get into a little bit about how to interpret hireling and henchman loyalty morale here, okay, which I kind of went over already, but this is the thing. Now, the way it's going to work during the adventure, if the player or the employer, decides what he wants the hired help to do, the DM makes a loyalty and morale check if appropriate. It's not always going to happen, only if it's a test, only if it's something significant. Then it goes well. You go forward and take the act, or don't do the act. Don't take the act, but then the DM will determine the success. Sometimes it'll take a roll, sometimes it'll, whatever. It's up to the DM basically, but it's never like the PC says. It's not like I have my henchman open the door, or I have my henchman look at it. You say, hey, John, can you go check that? And the DM who's playing John, yeah, man, based on the roll, if you have a good morale check, yeah, I do that. I'll pick that up, or I'll go get that, or I'll get the firewood, whatever it is. But you have to say it in character, right? You're not just saying, I have my henchman shoots an arrow. No, you order them to say, John, shoot the arrow, kill the orc on the ridge. Okay, you got it. Boom, and he shoots the arrow, and there's a roll, right? That's how it'll work. Now, I'm going to have the PCs make the rolls for their hirelings, henchmen, and this and that. Now, because I am using Roll20 for this game, and Roll20 has a great second edition character sheet somebody put together. Amazing, really well done. And it makes a lot of rolling pretty simple, right? You click the button on the sword attack, and boom, out comes the sword roll, and the damage is already there, and this and that. All the modifiers are counted in. It's like the 5e character sheet, but this guy made it from scratch and put a hell of a lot of work into it. So well done, buddy. I remember your name, I give you the credit, but I am going to do something different with the hirelings and henchmen. I'm not going to make a integrated character sheet for them. I am going to make a PDF for each hireling, henchman, mercenary, whatever, and a PDF on a second edition character sheet, a form fillable one. And I'm going to email it to the player who's playing that guy. I don't want this integrated into Roll20, because here's the problem. If you integrate an NPC, hireling, henchman, mercenary, whatever, into Roll20, the player is just going to think of them as an extension of themselves. They're going to look at this NPC as another attack, because all they literally have to do to control that NPC is hit the attack button with longsword or oil or something like that, right? They're just going to think of them as another attack or something along those lines. And I don't want that. I want them to be a stark division between the PC's action and the NPC's action. I can think of no more stark division than to have this player have to pull up a PDF or print it out and look at it and say, okay, he's John, can you make a longsword? Attack him with your longsword, John. All right, and loyalty morale, you got it. He runs into combat, and then the PC would have to actually stop, look at the PDF or look at the sheet, and say, okay, John's longsword attack is it's a D20. Okay, he hit an AC of what he hit an AC of 7. Good. All right, hit an AC of 7. DM, does that work? Yeah, you hit. Okay, what's the damage? 1R/1D8. He did 8 hit points. Great. Okay, you've heavily wounded the whatever. That's how it's going to work. I want there to be a stark division, because otherwise it's too simple. You're all here and click, and that's just no. I want the PC to know that this is a separate individual human being. It helps make them more human in their eyes anyway. I think that really helps. And the more you can humanize your NPCs, the better the game will be, because it makes the game more immersive. It makes it a more more reality filled. This is what you're not going to hire somebody to go in and open a door knowing they're going to die or not caring if they die. It doesn't make any sense. So this is basically what I do. Now, you guys could look at my rules are on analogmancave.com. I'll put a link below in the description, but this is what I do for hireling, henchmen, mercenaries, and followers. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys do and how you treat it, and what do you think of the rules? Is there anything you can suggest? If I find any typos or errors, please feel free to tell me that too, guys. But I'm looking forward to your feedback here. I think this is going to be helpful for a lot of people, because even old school guys still don't do this, but I think it to be the best way. I think there's a better way to do it. I think the way I described is pretty darn good. So again, thank you very much for the Hyperborea. Jeff Talani, your Hyperborea game inspired a lot of this. I copy pasted a bunch of chunks out of it and put it in here. And Jason Hobbs, all right, you have he has a great series going on YouTube, guys. You could check it out. He's running some West Marches games there. Okay, it's Hobbs and Friends is his name of his channel, and so check that out as well. And guys, I just got monetized, so you could subscribe and be a member and give tips and super chats and all this kind of crap. So it's kind of cool. I don't know when you're listening to this video, but right now it's you December 17th, 2012. So if you're listening in the future when I have 6 trillion followers, you can say, hey, that's an old video from Joe. But if you're listening now, it's kind of cool, guys. I'm kind of excited. So I just did all that stuff. So take a look, check it out. If you like it, subscribe, whatever. But follow it, hit follow, share it out to everybody. I really, really appreciate it, guys. Okay. Thank you very much, Ritz. Like, wow, 40 minutes here. So you guys are really cool. Thank you for listening this long. And please share it, like it, subscribe, and I hope you come back for another video. Take it easy. Have a great day.